Hello, and welcome to Always with Awareness. My name is Awa Lodmel.
And I'm Douglas Lodmel. And today we're talking about generosity.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So I know we already had a show on giving and receiving, but generosity is a little different.
That's right.
It's a little bit, it's all the same, but it's a little different perspective on the concept. So how do you see generosity? I guess would be the way I'd like to start.
Good question. All I can tell you is when I knew I needed to work on my generosity.
Oh, okay. When was that?
I don't remember exactly, but it's just a long time ago. I remember, I don't know what I was giving, but just the energy that was stuck and the judgment of, is it the time or should I be giving it, and who is this, and I'm sure you all can relate to that. And I remember breathing, and one of my sisters were there, and I shared with her, and I said, wow, I'm stingy. And she's like, you the most generous person? But what I meant was that generosity, as much as maybe it is given, it is something to need working to get it right.
Yeah.
Because I think we all believe we are generous, but we don't see the work it takes to be generous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything takes work.
That's right.
If you think it doesn't take work, it just means you haven't seen the work that is there yet to do.
That's right. That's right.
And it's funny because I look at all the things in my life before I was really doing the work, before, when I was just, I would say asleep, and growing up, and I'm a teenager. And then at some point in my 20s, I started more consciously doing the work. Mm-hmm. And the areas in which I looked at and thought, oh no, I'm fine there. They just weren't examined yet. That's all right. It was.
That's right.
They just needed examination. So that's what I hear you saying, is that at some point you realized, oh, my generosity needs examination.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because I remember just the judgment. Let's say you're giving money to somebody. We already had it that it has to be somebody who has less than you.
Who's needy.
Who's needy.
Right.
Almost like we're giving to the poor. Mm-hmm. Well, poor, what is poor? Right? Mm-hmm. And what you're giving, what is that does to the other person? I think I realized that generosity was for me. Mm-hmm. That I myself was stuck with all the judgment and the beliefs that I have around giving and receiving. That it took generosity to even receive. Mm-hmm. That it took generosity to share a moment. That it wasn't only about money, by the way. Mm-hmm. I remember one of our friends' mom was 80-something years, and we went to visit her. And I asked her, if you had something to share in your life that I need to pay attention to, what would that be? And I was amazed with the answer she gave me. She said, if I had to come back, I would be more generous with my time and with people. I was like, wow, why? She said, because I'm the type of woman that didn't invite anyone in my house, that kept my house so clean and didn't want to have people come to dirty it. Mm-hmm. I would be the woman that make sure I have the plastic covers in the furnitures just to make sure. And I saw how little of a life I had for myself and my husband. Yeah. And she was worried about all this life that she didn't give to this man that was her husband. And that stuck on me. I was like, wow, what a gift. What a gift to end your life thinking I wasn't generous enough. Mm. Right?
Yeah.
And guests, we always talk about the guests when we receive guests, how they are the ones who are more generous than we are. Yeah. They're the one that left their comfort, their comfortable home, their comfortable bed, their whatever food they have that they used to come visit you. So who are they not for you to go the extra miles to make them comfortable? So just like Rumi said, if you are missing anything in your life, look at it and see if you have given enough of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you mentioned money.
Yes.
And when people think about generosity, I think they usually think about money. Mm-hmm. That's usually the context in which they think they could be more generous or that they are already so generous.
Because that's what we value, right?
Well, that's what we value, right?
One of the things we value.
So, when I started examining my generosity, mm-hmm. I was listening to the Course in Miracles, and the Course in Miracles, the way that defines generosity is that the value of anything is such that when you give it away, it increases. That's the only thing that is valuable in this universe, is that what you give away increases in you. Well, that can't be money, because money is a sum-zero game, right?
That's right.
I only have so much money, and if I give it away, I don't have it. And there's a limit to how much I can give.
That's right.
Because there's a limit to how much money I have. Even Bill Gates has only so much money, and he could give it all away, and he would be done giving, right?
That's right.
But you can give not money. You can give of your time. You can give of your wisdom. You can give of ideas that expand other humans. Mm-hmm. That increases when you give it.
That's right.
It increases when you give it, especially the idea of the concept mm-hmm. of giving an idea away. Oh. There's nothing that expands greater than an idea.
Absolutely.
And so if the idea you're giving is faith and trust and love, mm-hmm. that is expanding in the person that you gave it to, and it's expanding in you.
That's right.
And so that influenced the way I see my generosity. Mm-hmm. And yes, I think the word still applies to money, but it's certainly not the thing I think about anymore. When I think about, am I being generous?
That's right.
Is it, am I sharing? Am I sharing? Am I giving my love, my energy?
You.
And when it comes to hospitality, which is I think what you were referring to with the guest and, mm-hmm. and what Rumi said, that runs through all the wisdom traditions. This idea that a guest should be treated like God himself showed up at your door. Whether
right.
it's the Bible or the Quran, mm-hmm. The idea that a guest comes to you is elevated to this
right.
incredibly high level of, you really are encouraged to value that.
That's right.
Because that's generosity.
It is. And the other thing about generosity is that I want to share is with our kids, right? What are we teaching them? What does generosity means? Because if you look at now kids, we all want to be successful, and unfortunately for most, successful means having money. For me, it's different. I think it's joy. If I'm joyful, I'm successful,
yeah.
right? But again, it's to ask yourself, am I generous with my parents? And what does it mean when your parents already have all the money in the world? What can you be generous with? Your time.
Yeah.
Time is something you can be generous with. Another thing is gift. To give to somebody that even have more than you, mm-hmm. that you think that they don't even need it, but yes, you're gifting to them. I had to work on myself because I come from a society that give a lot to poor. But not only the poor need sometime. Sometimes you have somebody who had a job, have everything in his life, a family. Now he's retired, cannot go beg, will never pick up the phone to ask anybody. And I had to really do the work to see who are those people in my life. Because if I just leave it to my mind, it will always give to somebody that has less.
Yeah.
And was that generous? It's just a generosity. Yes, it is. But it's so easy That one is so easy to do for me, right? And I guess for most of us. But to look at somebody who would not ask of you and see what they need. And that's why I give the example of the parents. Sometimes we do not ask, but to remember, what did my parents give me? And when can I give it back?
Yeah.
And how can I give back?
Well, I mean, it's such a good point to not see the giving as need-based.
That's right.
But see it as the generosity being that which is for you to give, right?
That's right.
So as Khalil Gibran said in The Prophet, which is one of my favorite books, and you givers, when you give, don't ask if the receiver is justified, if their need is justified.
That's
Does the apple tree ask when you pick the apple?
No.
It doesn't. And it's not for us. It's for us to give. And I remember you and I were having a conversation. This was long ago. We were living in Florida. Somebody came over, a guest, and he had these beautiful black pearls.
Yeah.
And we started talking about generosity. And we were talking about this concept that there's also a feeling that can go with it.
Yeah.
There are times in my life where I have been compelled almost to give somebody something. And my heart was just like, oh, I just want to give. I just want to, whether it's a phone call, I want to give my attention, I want to give my love, I want to acknowledge that person, I want to remind myself or remind them, or whether it was financial or whether it was whatever it was.
Yeah.
There's and that sensitivity is something that I consider a gift to be able to feel
Absolutely.
that, because the more I feel it, the more I feel it.
Absolutely. And again, like I said, it's something to practice. It's not given. It's part of this awareness that you have to have about yourself, about the people in your life, right? I remember I had to practice each time my mind think of somebody to call them.
Yeah, right.
Right? I practice that all the time. Just call them and say, hey, how are you? Because there is no little practice. Believe me, this work of the mind, you want to be present. You want to be aware. And we're doing this out of generosity, right? And you are receiving it out of generosity. And again, the giver and the receiver is one. It takes to be a good receiver to be generous. If you're not generous, you can't even receive either.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, if you can't receive it, you can't give.
That's right.
Right? Because you're saying, I can't receive. I would never ask somebody to do that. Right?
Right.
I wouldn't, because I don't want to be asked to do that. Right?
Yeah.
So the receiver has an incredible role in this, and it's not more than the giver.
No.
But in our society, the giver is so much more valued.
That's right.
And again, we talked about this in the other episode. So if you like this giving conversation, you haven't seen the episode on giving, I encourage you to go listen to it, because we did a whole episode on giving and receiving.
That's right.
In the context of generosity, I'll tell you when it happened for me, that I realized somebody was being so generous, and it had nothing to do with money, right? I was 21 years old. I was working. I got a week vacation. I called my brother. He was living in Europe, and we were going to go do Urel, and he had friends, and we're going to try to stay with everybody. So we get on the Urel, and we end up in Bulgaria. And this is in the 80s. And so, this was still communist, basically, just after communism. And the couple that we go to visit is a very old couple. They're living in a very poor building, those big giant towers of cement that electricity only a couple hours a day kind of thing. And they just invited us into their home. And when it came time for bed, they pulled out the couch, and we stayed on the couch, and they said goodnight, and they went into another room. And this happened for 3 or 4 days. We were staying there. And one morning I walked in, when I woke up, to the kitchen, which was a tiny little kitchen. And I saw bedding on the floor. And I said, what's going on? I don't understand. Who slept on the floor? It was just the 4 of us in the house. And then my brother said, "Oh, that they're sleeping on the floor. We're in their bed." I said, "What do you mean we're in their bed? We're in the couch." There was no bedroom in the house. There was one room, and they gave it to us, and they slept on the floor in the kitchen, and that just shook me, because it was and it was done in a way that I had never seen it done.
Wow.
I'd never seen it done with so much love and generosity, and just wanting to give so much, and having what they gave was so much more than if they had written a check, which
I know. And to people that you for sure not even going to see again.
Never going to see them again. We knew we would never see them again. It was just this moment, but it touched me the rest of my life. I still think of them. I still think of that trip, and that was just one of many examples I can give on that trip. I mean, it just kept happening.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think is so beautiful, and I see it more outside of America, sadly. In America, it's harder. We've isolated more. We've lost a little bit of that, I think.
Well, I mean, just to tell you, right? You can think somebody's poor, but yet generosity got nothing to do with that.
No, nothing.
Right? Nothing to do with that. And I'm sure every one of you has experienced universe sending you somebody that touched you, moved you in a way that you are facing what is it to be generous, human generosity. And if you don't, it's because you have not opened yourself to receive it. Because it's there.
Yeah.
It's always there. And it takes practice to see how much human beings can be so generous.
Yeah.
And yet, we're doing everything to be stingy, to be private, to be hoarding, thinking we broke, thinking we don't have enough. We have a saying in Africa, they say, thank me, I give you more. Ask me, I might, and I might not. That's what God will do. Mm-hmm. So when you're generous, you're saying, I'm grateful, I have enough. Mm-hmm. That's when more can come. That's when, just like you shared, when you give, you feel that it's replenished right away. Mm-hmm. But if you're going with the idea of I don't have enough, and if I give, I won't keep it, then you are missing the point.
Yeah.
And there is nothing you can give to anybody. You're giving to yourself.
Yeah.
And given
always.
with the right intention, not just because somebody is lower than you, need less, or look ugly, or is a homeless, but really being present. The intention you're giving with, that is more important than anything to me.
Yeah, well,
and
it's funny on this concept of generosity when it comes to money. It makes me think of we have this unwritten rule in this society that we live in, mm-hmm. that when we go out together, when we're in community together, certainly when we go out to dinner, mm-hmm. especially when there's young people and older people involved, usually the older people that have established themselves, that have the money, usually pick up the check, mm-hmm. right? That's a common thing. It's accepted. We all kind of learn to calculate who's probably going to be able to handle that. When we're with our peers, we split the bill, right?
Yeah.
When we're with somebody who's older, we kind of wait to see if maybe they're gonna take us out to dinner.
Yeah.
What I learned is in that context, the most powerful giving that can occur is for the one with less to actually pick up the check. Because what are you giving there? Sure, you're giving the meal, but that's not the lesson that will be taken. Everyone at the table will see that and learn something from it. The one with more will learn something from it. The one with less, the one that is doing it will learn something from it, because the generosity there is different. It's out of context. And what you're saying is that I respect you enough. I have it to give. I want to give it. I want to practice being in that position to share financially, even though I'm not the one in the strongest financial position at the table.
That's right.
I have done this so many times. I have proven it over and over. Just trust me on this. Next time you go out to dinner, especially if you're a young person, especially if you're kind of in that position where usually you are the one not paying the check.
Even with your parents.
Absolutely with your parents,
Absolutely.
especially with your parents. Pick up the check and just watch what happens. Just watch what happens. Pick up the check with your friends.
That's right.
Pick up the check with older people. Pick up the check with your parents, your grandparents. With anybody that you usually let them pay is even more powerful. But those kind of things, because the lesson there is not I'm giving you money, because they don't need your money. They have more than you. The lesson there is I am giving you respect. I am giving you, and believe me, it's felt.
Absolutely. So just to say, it takes practice. It takes practice to be generous. Are we supposed to be generous? I believe yes. How do I know? Universe was generous with every one of us. We came here naked, not talking, not walking, and yet here we are, received by people, breastfed. Here we are with everything we need. Look at the earth always giving us. So this giving back is giving to us back. So practice it. Just see where you are stingy. Like I said, I am very stingy. I used to practice a lot, seeing myself going like, wow, why is it so hard? I had to breathe, wait, the next day, do it. And I was young. But you know what? With practice, gosh, it's so beautiful. So beautiful. Don't miss out of this opportunity to connect. To connect with somebody you care for, to connect with a moment. Because life is just how do you say, a sum of moments. And don't miss out of this moment that you can just, like you said, pick up a check or give to somebody that would be so surprised. I remember one day I had such a migraine, and I don't usually get migraines at all. And we were living in Miami, and I was in my car. I drive a Mini Cooper convertible. I arrive in the red light, barely could see. And there is a car next to me, and it was a mother and a daughter. And in front of us, there is this guy selling flowers. I wanted to buy the flowers. They wanted to buy the flowers. One of us was going to go with the flowers because with the time at the red light, not both of us can buy the flowers. So I bought the flowers and I handed up to the next car. And the mother, she was Spanish, just screamed, "Oh my God, it's for me." And we didn't have time to talk. But one thing happened that I was amazed. 10 seconds after, my whole migraine was gone.
Right?
I drove home and I was like, what does that tell me? Just seeing somebody who was not expecting those flowers, just giving how she received it, the joy in her face, and the daughter who wanted to buy it for her mom, but we couldn't do it both. It changed my life. I got a lesson there. There is a lesson. There is something when you practice that just fills you with joy. And if you're asking me, what is a successful life for me? It's a life full of joy. So again, practice.
Yeah. Yeah, and generosity takes practice.
Yes.
So the lesson, I think, for me in this context is that the most valuable thing that you can give is that which, when you give it, increases.
That's
so,
right.
So practice with that. Play with that concept of what can I give that actually increases in me? Ideas of faith and love and joy to another person, which is what the flowers
Absolutely.
were. You gave her
I
joy,
will never forget that lady.
and it reconnected you to where
Yes.
your headache disappeared.
That's right.
You know, so money is almost always available as a component of generosity, but not as the thing itself.
That's right.
The money is not the generosity. It's the gift behind it. So it took you money to buy the flowers, but that was not the generosity.
No.
So it's really this understanding of that increase, right? So clearly it was the increase that when you gave it away, everything increased.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think if we can learn that, It will change the context in which you see generosity and the opportunities for you to be generous and to receive generosity. And that's the other thing. When you're receiving generosity, especially in the non-monetary form, when somebody does something nice for you, when somebody holds the door for you, when somebody says something encouraging to you, that's generosity. And if you receive it in a generous way, what's the likelihood they're going to do it again? If you say, oh, thank you so much, I really appreciate that, I needed to hear that today, they're going to be like, oh, that worked, that was good.
Absolutely.
If they hold the door for you and you walk in and you don't acknowledge them, okay, maybe they won't do it again because they weren't encouraged.
That's right.
So generosity is absolutely always two sides.
That's right.
Right. And
for the example of the door, if that happens, okay, we can all lose awareness.
Yeah.
And you just caught yourself and the person is still there, say, I am so sorry.
Yeah.
I just miss it because there was somebody being generous and you just didn't receive it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why I say it takes practice. It's not something that is going to come and, but practice enough and you reach a joyful life. And a joyful life is not only a life where you are joyful, but everyone around you can also be joyful.
Well, isn't that joyful for you?
That's right.
I mean, have you ever been around non-joyful people? It's not fun. But when you're around joyful people, it's fun. So
it is contagious.
So you want the world around you to be joyful with you, and
That's
you want
right.
to be joyful with them.
That's right.
And that generosity is part of that. So yeah, great.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for joining us, and please be generous, comment, like, and subscribe. This is very important. This system of the social media, that's the currency of the system. And so we really are asking you to subscribe to the channel, share it if you find this valuable. We are very thankful for everybody who's listening to this, and we're really happy to be here. So.
And one thing I wanted to add, it is generous to allow people to be generous with you.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I am here with my leg, can do a lot, and I had to really allow my family to be generous back, and it feels amazing. We love you, and see you next week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See you next time.